everyone, I'm Alice, and I'm here to read you the patch notes for Embers Adrift. Embers Adrift is an MMO that is currently in beta, and the server is up every Wednesday night, and then again on Friday afternoons, all the way through Tuesday afternoon. So it's basically up 5 days a week. You can join the Embers Adrift Discord, the link is below. And you can check out the events section there at the top of the server to see what times the server's up in your local time zone. Also, I've put together a small wiki team, and we are building the Embers Adrift wiki, so keep an eye out for that in the future. And for my regular viewers, I'm changing up the schedule of these videos. I will be doing them on Thursdays instead of Wednesdays. That way, I'm not feeling so rushed and stressed out about trying to get the video done before the server opens on Wednesday night. Also, I'll be able to include any of the weekend hotfix notes that have been added after the fact. Alright, so these are the notes for Wednesday, September 28th. What's new? This week brings a slew of performance updates, a new quest log, and changes to how ashen creatures work. In addition, we have made your lives a little easier by modifying how dungeon egress points work. Finally, we have increased the number of wild spawns in the Meadowlands to see how far we can push our server hardware and the navigation system. Let's please head all to Meadowlands and engage as many creatures as possible to push the system to its limits and see how things perform, i.e., how responsive are the creatures. We're seeking focused feedback on these items this week. Are you beginning to notice performance improvements with the changes made in the last 2 weeks? Meadowlands mob responsiveness. Since increasing the spawn count, are the NPCs still responsive? Have you encountered NPC hard leashing? If so, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the egress points taking you back to town instead of to the beginning of the dungeon? Additional thoughts and comments on the updated crafting consolidation listed below. Reminder, the servers will be open for 4 hours on Wednesday evening. The servers will open again on Friday at 12 p.m. Central and close on Tuesday at 12 p.m. Central. See the events in Discord for time zone translations. Bug fixes and improvements. Tech. Reduced memory overhead of New Haven and Northreach terrain shader. Reduced size of a number of textures to further reduce memory overhead. Added code to validate a player's inventory content before sending the data to the client. This should prevent instances where a player cannot log in because they have invalid items in their inventory. Enabled impulse on larger bare footsteps and body falls. Fixed targeting commands will no longer fire off when chatting or typing in a field. Fixed improved monolith teleporting issues when crashing during a zone. Instead of coming back into the same zone at the default spawn point, you should show up where you crashed. Fixed Ember monolith costs are now deducted after a successful zone. If zoning fails due to a crash or some other reason, this should no longer result in lost essence. Fixed holding left mouse button while turning your character should result in the character turning independent of the camera's direction. Fixed adjusting spawn zone height on rat nests and anthills to reduce the chance of mobs spawning below them. Enabled some features to further optimize assets bundle packing. This may slightly improve loading times and reduce their size on disk. Reduced session key timeout. This will result in less time waiting after a crash. Let us know if you encounter any issues zoning into a new scene. Environment and art. Fixed removing some rogue colliders and central veins. Rebaked nav mesh for central veins. Fixed missing earlobe with certain helms. UI. Added trade chat channel. This can be accessed by the /t/tr /TRA, TRAD, and TRADE commands. Channel currently shows as overhead chat. This will be fixed for the weekend. Your saved chat settings have been reset to accommodate this change and have it included by default. Updated recipe ability level display is now more clear that it is referring to a level in the crafting UI. Quest. Added Halleck's Tower quest to New Haven Valley. Fixed discovery objective not properly listing undiscovered if the player has discovered nothing. Fixed many quest typos and grammatical errors. Updated loot objectives will now show an initial progress notification if you already have some of the items. Design. Added a new ember ring and egress point to the south central veins. Egress points are now zone points that take you back to town rather than the start of the dungeon. Rupture radius is doubled. 2 new dungeons are now available via Northreach Ember Drifts. Increased density of wild spawns in Meadowlands. Let us all load into Meadowlands and see how the server handles this increased creature load. Bat ears spawn rates again increased. Red flatworm buff change to avoid health regen spam. Ants, mires, and spiders can now all turn ashen. Hot fixes from last weekend. Fix the skybox getting stuck. Fix server side crafting exception. Fix the number of consumable recipes. Updated the Tinkerer role description. Added tools to provisioner description. Added missing recipes to the merchant. And added a tech called MipMap streaming, which should significantly lower GPU VRAM usage. New stuff. Quest log. This week brings the promised new quest log. This new UI window is bound to L by default. Be sure to update your bindings if this causes a conflict. While there are still improvements to come, this new UI should make tracking your quests easier. In addition to displaying the objective information previously only available via the list objectives command, this log also displays a log entry written in the first person to provide you with more context regarding your current quest progress. In the future, this UI will be expanded to include a tutorial codex, where you may review helpful information similar to the pop-ups you see throughout the game. Additional quest list management tools are also planned, such as the ability to archive certain quests, putting them in a different expandable section of the list, and the ability to sort and search the list. This is also needed in the crafting UI. So this is what the new quest log looks like. You've got your active quests, completed quests, little drop-down menus, some information and objectives. Ashen creature updates. We have made some modifications to Ashen spawns that should improve the experience across the board. You now gain adventuring experience for the original kill, meaning that for an NPC plus Ashen encounter, you will gain experience for both individually. Ashen creatures will now spawn in at the same level as the creature that spawned them. When an NPC turns Ashen, it will tier down in difficulty. This means that a 3 chevron mob will turn into a 2 chevron mob. 2 chevron mob will turn into a 1 chevron mob, and 1s will remain a 1. Finally, all Ember Drift access dungeons are now ruptures. All creatures inside of these dungeons have a chance to turn Ashen on death. In addition, 3 chevron Ashens have been added as uncommon and rare spawns throughout these Ember Drifts. Shader updates and cleanup. Since our last open beta weekend, I have identified a number of issues with shaders throughout our project. Shaders are basically a program that tells the graphics card how to draw things on the screen. We use different shaders such as grass, leaf, bark, cobweb, skin, eyes. Each of these things have different rendering parameters that require them to be drawn a bit differently. I have found that some shaders were unnecessarily being loaded multiple times at runtime. This had a pretty significant memory overhead and is completely avoidable with some attention paid to our asset bundle layout. This week I spent a great deal of time optimizing this layout and ensuring that no duplicate shaders were being loaded. In addition, I have eliminated a few high memory shaders that were only being used for a few items. With these shader optimizations, I was able to reduce the VRAM footprint in some situations by 300 to 500 megabytes. Finally, all custom shaders have been updated to be fully compatible with our version of the high-definition rendering pipeline. This should solve some MISC rendering issues with a number of things, such as the sparkling cobwebs. Optimization work here is still ongoing, so don't think I'm stopping now. As always, let us know if anything looks wrong or broken. Works in progress. If you want to see all the works in progress, go check out the thread, or just wait for me to make a video about it, or do both. So, pending crafting improvements, timeline 1 to 2 weeks. Thank you everyone who has provided feedback on a recent crafting overhaul. After some initial discussions and recipe rearrangements, we will be slightly revamping the professions and condensing them down into the following 6 professions. Recipe assignments are subject to change. Weaponsmith will be able to do one-handed and two-handed swords, one-handed and two-handed axes, and one-handed and two-handed maces and polearms. Woodworker, short bows, long bows, heavy and regular crossbows, arrows, bolts, quarterstaves, wooden bucklers, and banners. Outfitter, inner armor and leather outer armor. Armorsmith, metal outer armor, metal buckler, kite and heater shields, and hauberks. Provisioner, potions, smelling salts, food, drink, tools, ground torch, and repair kits. Tinkerer, jewelry, throwing knives, daggers, belts, masks, weapon augments, and armor augments. This will require a migration of characters when we implement this change. If anyone has one of the dropped professions, it will be converted to one of the above. If someone has both professions that end up being merged, like light and heavy weaponsmith and tailor and leatherworker, then we will drop one and set the level to be the highest of the two. Weapon and armor augments. Timeline 1 week. When the above crafting implementations go live, we should have weapon and armor augments ready to roll. These will give your equipment a little extra pep for a bit. Content Delivery Network, CDN. Timeline 1 to 2 weeks. We are nearly finished with updating our patching process to make use of a CDN. Up until this point, everything has just existed on a standard cloud server, which has been throttling downloads like crazy. Deployment via a CDN is a bit different, so it has taken us some time to revamp the process. Hopefully by next week, we can fully switch over and provide a better patching experience for everyone. Repair cost. Timeline 1 to 2 weeks. We're looking into improving how repair costs are calculated to mitigate repair costs at higher levels. Still some work left to do, but just wanted you to know that we are working on it. Alright, now we've got the hot fixes for this weekend. Patched up some cosmetic holes in dungeon walls, reducing overall tree density in New Haven Valley and Northreach for performance, rebaking nav mesh to account for this, fixed some rendering issues causing things to follow your camera happen mostly in Dryfoot, reduced the cost of basic recipes, added a suffix to cooked meats to help differentiate them, fixed an issue with some abilities that should disable auto attack, but were not doing it quickly enough. Minor performance fix with the skybox that was causing some per frame allocations. Alright, so that is the patch notes, guys. Please keep in mind that this is beta and everything here is subject to change, and your feedback and bug reports are absolutely invaluable to the devs. Thank you so very much for watching, and I really hope to see you in game.